I have the ability to make stronger encounters, take larger countermeasures, put more juice into fights, add more dynamic elements into fights, incorporate traps, incorporate objectives, have elements of fights where monsters come in waves, use a lot more dynamic encounters that I want to be playing with as a DM anyway, that I want to use to shake up and spice up encounters day to day anyway.
Hello, friends. Robert Bevan here, author of the Caverns Creatures series of comedy, fantasy novels, and short stories. With me is Sam West, and today we will be talking about what are we talking about? Initiative. That's what we're doing. We're talking about initiative today. Individual initiative versus team initiative specifically. Is that
Yeah,
right?
it's
Yeah.
kind of a way to frame it, right? There's the way initiative works, which is the individual initiative is what we can call it this video, right? Is the order of everyone rolls d20s, every monster rolls a d20, you add a dexterity modifier, it goes in a long list. The DM then has options to keep it hidden or make it shown or however else they want to handle it. And then initiative just runs top to bottom over and over and over and over again. That is the base system that it currently is. This conversation is going to be about why I think that system is, what's a polite way to say it, because we're early in this video. We'll just go with hot trash. We'll just go with miserable, I think is the best way I can frame it. I think it is one of the leading contributions to people really hating combat in D&D a lot of the time. A lot of people that find they want to get into the game and they twiddle their thumbs for 30 minutes while they wait for a single turn rotation to go around, and then they say, I take the attack action, and then they wait another 30 minutes. I think initiative is one of the key problems that is making that unfun situation occur. And there's a way to fix it. And that way to fix it is with team initiative, or as it's called in DMG, side initiative. I'm a huge proponent of variants that enable whole groups to go, and we're gonna talk about why I think you should do that instead. And that's to say, like, if you're not enjoying combat and want to find a way to either make it faster, easier to track, if you have issues that you would like to address, this is a solution that I found that I use. And that's what.
And I guess I should state right here at the beginning of the video, I like individual initiative.
Have you ever tried any other form of initiative?
No.
Okay. Well, great. I hope I can convince you to maybe want to at least give it a try.
Yeah, maybe. But I mean, I do like, especially if I'm drinking, I like those big gaps of time because I can stay and like, all right, see what's going on. And I enjoy that. I enjoy seeing what my teammates are doing, what the monsters are doing. But if I don't, I mean, I can go to the bathroom. That's great.
So where I want to go with this off is I'm going to talk about generally the issues that I have with the base initiative. And you can tell me your thoughts on my issues that I have with the base initiative. And it's not going to be like initiative is the sole cause of these problems, but it is. I think the random initiative that goes into a sorted order contributes to these problems. The first and chief among them is it is awful to track. It has never been good to track. Even when you have tracking tools, it is still an enormous pain in the butt. Even using, like, I've used Roll20 a lot. I've used Foundry a lot. I don't even like either of their systems because it still takes too long to set up the initiative system and to make sure everyone does their things right. There's a running joke with one of my groups that I play with, and that running joke is, did you click your character? Because so oftentimes on Roll20 what happens is if you don't click your character, it doesn't add to the initiative, then you have to re-put yourself at the order, and it's a whole little hubbubaloo whenever you have 6 people talking on a microphone on the internet. People get lost in it. You want to start initiative. You don't realize someone's not in it. They don't realize they're not in it because there's also a list of 16 monsters that are on it. It's a nightmare. It's awful. I hate it. That's
We
my
have that
first
issue too.
issue.
But yeah, I've learned to click my character.
Sure. I think that it is an unnecessary issue. Because I don't think the juice is worth the squeeze, which again we'll get to later. Another issue that I have with the way base initiative is framed. Balancing encounters without known quantities is really, really challenging. And part of the unknown in balancing an encounter is initiative. So if I have a big bad and it happens to roll a 3 on its initiative, there's a real chance it doesn't get a turn before it has 3 saves thrown at it, and then it is out of the fight, right? There's a very real variance where some of my monsters, some of my players can experience not getting a chance to play the game. And I don't have great tools as a DM if I'm running rules as written, if I'm sitting down at the table, if I am doing everything by the book and want to be like playing as to the rules as I can. there will be some encounters and some levels of variance that take fights that could have been fun and engaging and interesting and just dunk them into either wildly unfun and destroys the players, or entirely cakewalk. This was a joke. I can't believe we've been threatened by this guy for the last like 30 years, right? A Big Bad Lich, I think, is a pretty key example of this, where like if a Lich is forced to use all of its ledger resistances in a single round because it's got a low dex and rolled like a 4 on its initiative score, there's a chance that this CR 20-some bad guy just loses 150 plus hit points in a single round and just dies before being able to take any proactive measures, be able to try and do any cool, interesting, engaging things. Now, there are other ways you can mitigate and prep for that, obviously. You can have defensive prep spells up, you can have certain environments and situations up. Again, it's not in a vacuum that this is alone an initiative problem, but I think initiative contributes to this variance problem and makes for more non-encounters where there could have been engaging, fun, back and forth kind of fights.
Well, I'm curious where you're going to go with this, because that's the sort of thing, that's exactly the sort of problem I was foreseeing with like group initiatives.
Not even a little bit. Exactly
Okay.
the opposite. My last sort of I have a large piece about why I don't like the initiative, and I'm just referencing my thoughts because I wrote it a while ago about like why I think it sucks. The other big reason, and this one's a little bit more abstract, I find that individual initiative is not good at helping facilitate cooperative play. And what I mean by that is whenever there's a large element of variance in a fight already, and the order in which monsters go, you may either not know, or if you do know, you can't predict their actions, puts you in a circumstance where you're going to favor taking actions that specifically you know will work right now. That often is going to be agnostic of what your team is doing because they are going to go at different times, right? So if your cleric is going later after 2 more monsters, you're not going to want to ready actions to react to them because of the variance that can occur on those 3 turns that may lead to other outcomes. There's a lot of individual decisions that are made that happen in initiative because you are acting as an independent force in this random interval.
I
That's
like
not to
that.
say Sure. That's not to say that there isn't value there. There are going to be people that prefer having to have this very high level of variance, thinking on your feet kind of nature. I don't think that is necessarily a real outcome that happens, though. I think you end up getting a lot more sameness as opposed to different options and different tactics and trying out different things. Because the example I gave is your rogue. You have the option on your turn to either ready your action, so when your fighter engages it, you can get the shot off, and then you have a free bonus action, do whatever else you want with. There's a little bit of upside. Maybe you could hide. Maybe you could, dash. Maybe you could disengage, whatever you would need to. You might not need to do that right now, but you could. That's a little extra boon you could have. Now, that is the teamwork element of it. But you don't know what's going to happen between you and the fighter's turn. You don't know if the monster's going to engage them. You don't know if you're going to want to shoot the monsters that the fighter is engaging with. So you have different options instead. The other option that you can just default to is I'll just use steady aim. I just don't need to move. I'll put myself in a spot where I can just sit back, bonus action steady aim, and use sneak attack. The outcomes, most of the time, will still be you're a rogue that does sneak attack damage. But in the variant example, in the example where you don't have the ability to coordinate immediately with your fighter, you're put in a position where you're going to favor taking the same action over and over again that isn't going to be affected by the variance. You're going to take actions and opportunities to remove as much variance as you can, even if you're doing it subconsciously, just because it goes, oh, I know this works now. I'll just do that. That's an element that's going to remove a lot of opportunities for interesting team dynamics to occur. And I don't think that's necessarily a boon to the game. It's, again, subtle and complicated. It's not like a catch-all. It's like every single encounter you're going to be doing the same thing over and over again. It's not like there won't be some instances where random initiative won't prompt more interesting decision-making. But I would gauge, having run a lot of encounters using random initiative and a lot of encounters using team initiative, I found team initiative has led to a lot more varieties of stupid ideas, wild strategies, players coming together to try doing a bunch of different things that shakes up combat to lead to a lot higher variety of encounters as far as the player actions are concerned.
Well, I guess I'd have to see that played out, but yeah, I'm gonna go a little step further. I'd say I like individual initiative so much that I kind of wish they'd bring back the I think it was 2nd edition, maybe they had the weapon speeds.
There is actually, I just recognized the stakes. I looked I was like, I should consult the MM or the DMG just so I can like see what their official rules, their variants for initiative was, and they have a speed factor variant that is like
Oh yeah.
or like a page and a half long. It is kind of cool. The idea is that everyone chooses their action before the round starts, that you roll initiative, and then there's a table that affects what actions go when based off of the initiative roll. I hate
Oh,
it.
that's
That sounds like awful to track, but it is a
yeah,
thing
it
you could
does.
do every single round that adds a huge amount of variance, that removes any amount of predictability to a fight. It's going to lead to a lot, I would guess, a lot of samey kind of encounters where you're like, I'm going to default to the action that is going to be most likely to succeed. And those are going to boil a lot more to the top because they're going to not be based off of what other things are doing. They're going to be actions you're taking agnostic of what actions occur, not actions that occur because specific other actions could have occurred, right? You're not reacting so much to other things and being able to make cool improvised decisions. You're saying agnostic of what happens, this is the best thing to do.
All
I
right,
hope that's kind of
I
clear.
don't. No, not really.
Right.
I was I don't know what those speeds you're talking about are. I'm just talking about the weapon speeds. You just factor those into your initiative, just like you do your dex mod. And
Oh,
so if you've got like a dagger, that's that attacks a lot faster than if you got a maul or something. And that all just bundles together into your initiative roll.
sure. I
And
don't.
the thing I like, I play a lot of rogues. I play a lot of dex-based characters, and I feel like you know going higher in initiative is kind of my little reward for that.
Bob, I'm gonna level with you. Dexterity doesn't need more rewards. It sure doesn't. Dex is already like the best or second best stat in the game. And I only would call it the second best stat in the game whenever you compare it to any spell casting ability, because
Yeah.
that matters a lot more for a lot of characters, right?
Mm.
But dexterity already is like, if you're making a character in 5th edition and you want it to perform well, you really can't go wrong almost always with having a second highest stat be at least dexterity, because it goes for dex saves, goes for armor class, it goes for attack rolls, it goes for damage rolls, it does all those for stealth rolls, it goes for initiative, and it just keeps going on and on and on. Then you go, well, what does strength give you? Hit and damage. Oh, athletics checks. That's not looking
Yeah.
as great. So I'm not of the opinion that like dex-based characters need more reasons to be like, oh, I'm better because I get to go sooner. I get the speed thing. I don't think that has translated that well. And we've seen other systems recently, like Pathfinder 2 has done, they use perception for their initiative ordering, which I prefer a lot. I like the idea of that characters that are more
Yeah.
perceptive would go earlier. That makes way more sense to me than the I can dodge better so I get to react faster, but I don't necessarily see it that well. I don't know. I think there's a little bit of disconnect with dexterity added to initiative that I don't like anyway, but
I could see arguments for both.
sure.
So tell me about what I'm missing here.
Okay, so with team initiative slash side initiative, the general gist of it for audience at home that don't really know what I'm talking about, and I'll just refresh Bob's memory. What happens is you, as opposed to the DMG version specifically, as opposed to rolling everyone individually, each team rolls a d20, no mods added. Whichever team goes higher goes first. And all characters on that team get to pick what order they go in, which is hugely beneficial to teamwork. It is hugely beneficial to coming up with cooperative and interesting and engaging strategies. It is that at its floor, which is not even how I run it. I run it, the players always go first, because I think that gives them a more rewarding, engaging experience to go onto the monsters, to figure out how they want to approach things, to see a fight and go, how do we want to handle this? There's a lot of extra agency given to you as a player in that instance. And the game is for the players, right? It's not for you as the DM. You're running the show, but they're the ones playing it. They're the ones that are going through the experience. You're the one trying to challenge them and make them have a good time, right? So
Okay.
this cohesively leads to really cinematic and overlapping encounters where every person isn't sitting around twiddling their thumbs because they don't know who's in between them and their next turn. They don't really need to care about what else is going on in the fight. Everyone is encouraged to pay attention to what everyone is doing so they can intersperse where they want to go based off of what other people want to do. You get conversations that are like, oh, Paladin, you should go in first so my sneak attack works. It's a really level 1 like teamwork kind of thought, but at a level 1 table with people that are playing the game for the first time, learning characters for the first time, even like you have a new character sheet, you're playing starting at 5th level, having encounters where you can start to figure out the basic gist of how does our team function as a unit, you will feel like a well-oiled machine in 2 or 3 encounters that has ideas of, this is our bread and butter setup takedown kind of strategy. What happens when wrenches are thrown into that? What happens whenever we want to incorporate new spells and abilities? You can get a lot more cool overlap. Bob, you're a person that loves the push and pull stuff with spike
Yeah.
growths and stuff, right? Doesn't it
Sure.
make a whole lot of sense to have, okay, this is going to be awesome. I'll set down a spike growth, then my druid will gust of wind things directly into it. A 1-2 punch combo that you know is going to happen and fire in the order you'd like it to, that rewards both players with having a kit that plays cohesively together. Everyone is encouraged to pay attention. Everyone is encouraged to cooperate. It's a deeply satisfying experience.
Yeah, I mean, I could see that. However, um, why are your players just not immediately obliterating whatever you throw at them then?
Because as a DM, I know they're always going to go first. I
Yeah.
know they're always
Okay.
able to put
Well,
out a large amount of damage. I have the ability to make stronger encounters, take larger countermeasures, put more juice into fights, add more dynamic elements into fights, incorporate traps, incorporate objectives, have elements of fights where monsters come in waves, use a
yeah.
lot more dynamic encounters that I want to be playing with as a DM anyway, that I want to use to shake up and spice up encounters day to day anyway. I can take an encounter, know my players will go first, and be able to know going into it with certainty they're going to be able to throw all of this at my monsters. My monsters need to have ways to deal with those problems. And that gives you a whole lot more variety. You can still have things like the monsters get the drop on the players with a surprise round where now monsters act first. That's a fine way to do things. But I really think that you as a DM will then automatically see these countermeasures are things I need to take so that these monsters can function against the players that I know are always going to go first. There's no variance there anymore. There's no longer an element of the fight that I don't have control of because I know what exact order things can happen in.
All right. Now let me ask you this. That's the way you run it.
Yep.
What if you're doing the other team, and they both roll a d20, and you know, do you have this like massively overpowered enemy that can then you just trounce your players if they get to go first?
Yes, which is why I don't run it
Ah,
that way.
okay.
That's a real problem I found. I did use just rules of written side initiative a couple of times, and I did find it was a lot harder for me to be like, well, if my monsters go first, I do want to weigh the encounter so that they can handle it if the players go
Right.
first, and
Okay.
then the
Good.
monsters go first, and then the cleric's unconscious, and you're like, Ash, this didn't work out as I probably should have. I don't. I think removing even that level of variance is a worthwhile endeavor because that is a real issue side initiative has is being incredibly snowbally to whichever team goes first. And again, if you know which team goes first, you as the DM can make adjustments. If you don't know what team goes first, well, it's more of a coin flip now, and I don't necessarily love that.
Um. All right. That was that question. I felt like I had another point. All right. All right. Yeah. Yeah. I was gonna go back to what you were saying about the spike growth and the gust of wind and all that, the push and pull, setting up setting up plans and group cooperation and stuff. Now, you've got the advantage of experience over me here because I don't like DMing. I haven't done it a lot. So you've gotten to see this in action more than I have. But theoretically, though, I feel like these cooperative elements still happen. Maybe not as frequently because you can't just gather up in a group and discuss. All right, here's what I'm going to do first, and then you're going to come in and do this. But I don't know when it happens. I mean, it still can happen. Yeah, I can.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, the druid can lay down a spike growth, and then the bugbears or whatever they go, and then all right, and then the rogue chooses. Am I going to sneak attack or am I going to? Well, not the rogue.
The
Whoever's got the gust
barbarian,
of wind. Yeah, whatever. Or am I
someone that
going
can
to
drag
push?
somebody,
Yeah,
right?
yeah, yeah.
So here's what I will say to that. I think having played and DM'd a lot,
Yeah.
it is genuinely difficult to expect teamwork based ideas to come to fruition whenever the variance is high. Oh, pardon me, the variance is as high as it is. That's not to say it doesn't happen. So again, the spike growth example, it does happen. I tend to see more. The spike growth grows down, monsters interact with it. The person that cast it the turn after takes advantage of it again, and maybe a party member also takes advantage of it, right? That is
Mm.
the most of the time just the person casting the effect that is a damaging area of effect spell. They're double dipping. Most everyone else is going to be doing something else likely. Most everyone else, generally, I find on the average encounter that I would run, if I were to guess, they are interacting less so with the effect that came down. I've had this point like to an issue where even I've had parties where people will put down supportive auras mid combat after some people have not used it. Then other people will not value it enough, move out of it, lose the effect of it, and do something else. And then only the person casting it or one or two of the people casting the aura effects are benefited from it anymore because there's a lot of sporadic ideas, a lot of needs changing as the fight progresses in a random varied order, right? If I, as a DM, like to introduce spontaneous factors, if I like to include like these things come in round 5 of the fight, it's going to take already the variance of that and amplify it up further to take effects that ask for cooperation and give them less room to be valuable, less room to be a strategically good thing to do, good thing to play around with. It's oftentimes your strategy will shift out of, I don't want to do this anymore because it's no longer good enough. I'm going to do this instead, right? And that's going to be where a lot of the teamwork stuff doesn't work as well. It still happens. It absolutely still happens. You still get people doing the 1-2 punch. You still get parties that do have moments of awesome cooperation. Sometimes they SEAL Team 6 it. But it is less whenever it is using random initiative than it is when it's using team initiative. By like, I've noticed a substantial margin. I see my players almost always going in and creating a cohesive plan now. Like, even groups that were just hodgepodge randoms that don't even like combat that much, that are just there to play, they are actually engaging with a fight where otherwise before I know for certain, because I've DM'd for these players before, they'd be sitting on their phones, they'd be hopping on, being like, oh, it's my turn, okay, I attack that thing twice, and they go back to their phone and they are disengaged with whatever else is happening.
Yeah, that sucks. I don't know. I feel like the part of the blame is on those players, though.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
But there's also an amount of expectation, right? I don't think it's necessarily always fair to blame people for who are playing a game that only get to interface with the game once every 15, 20 minutes because that's on their turn. I don't think it's that hard to fault them for wanting to zone out whenever someone spends 5 or 2 or 3 minutes looking and deciding what their character should be doing, figuring out what they're doing in this minute moment, rolling some dice, answering questions. How much dice do I roll here? What does the spell do again? Oh, let me go look it up. Is that how that works? I don't fault people for zoning out. They're not relevant in that conversation right now, right? It's hard to stay engaged for a whole consistent 20 minutes of things that don't matter to you at all. And that's a lot of what D&D combat does look like, right? If the game were more engaging, people would not disengage. And team initiative makes the game more engaging.
But they're still asking these questions, what dice do I roll and blah, blah, blah.
I'm saying people that are, whose turn it is not. I do not fault them for zoning out when other
no,
people
I
are
got you.
asking questions.
But I'm saying that all these questions are still being asked. Why? I mean, why are they not zoning out then?
Because they are. I don't entirely understand your question. I'm saying that a round in combat has a lot of downtime, and that causes people to zone out.
I got it. But why is that different, individual versus team? Like, if I'm looking at my phone and Timmy's asking questions about how his spell works, Timmy's still asking the questions, whether, no matter how the initiative's being run.
The largest point of difference is Timmy wants to know what he's going to do because his turn is right now. Because his turn could be immediately next. Because his turn can be affected by whatever is currently happening. Because there's always a moment where you want to know how your character is contributing to what's happening right now because everyone's going cohesively at the same time. Because everyone is deciding what actions we're taking as a unit. There isn't room to disengage because you want to know what am I going to do based off what my friends are doing? How are my friends' actions interacting with my action? And when do I want to intersperse my ideas with their ideas? When do I want to incorporate my abilities after their abilities happen? I care about what my cleric does. I might want my cleric to go first because I want a sneak attack on my turn. So I see a lot of the time it happens. Oh, you should go first so you can set up the prep spell so you can bless us. You should go first so that you can haste me. You should go first so you could X, Y, or Z me. And now that player's engaged on the other player's turn. Now Timmy cares a lot about the different orders in which people are going because his character's actions are going to immediately contribute, immediately pay off, and work with everyone else's simultaneously. There's so much less room for Timmy to sit around wondering, well, I don't have anything to do with any of this. Because it's all happening simultaneously.
Just to be clear, I was the one on the phone. Timmy was the one asking questions.
Sure.
Yeah. Gotcha.
Does that make sense, though?
Yeah, I mean, it does. But I mean, still, I've never done the team initiative thing, but there are, what is it? Ready to actions, all right, I'm going to wait for you to cast the bless on me, and then I'm going to go, hold my action off and do this thing.
And then it goes to 3 rounds into the combat, and the cleric might change their mind, and then you don't have a ready to action anymore. Sometimes this doesn't happen often, but it can happen. And I want an honest thought about on your turn in a variance initiative system. You're not thinking nearly as much about what your friends are doing because it isn't contributing to what your turn is. So you're not going to be often going to think about what is the cleric doing. Whenever you're asked what order are you all going in, you immediately think, what are they going? When is he going? When is she going? When are they going? When am I going? And all of that compiles into a circumstance where you are engaging with other people's character sheets. So yes, I'm not saying you can't have teamwork. I'm not saying base initiative system doesn't allow for people to ready actions, make strategic plans, decide to make and sequence things once things fire, to use haste before the combat starts or in the first round of it. There is strategic decision making there. There is teamwork that can happen. It is lessened by the variants, and it is team initiative empowers the team elements of the game that make you feel a lot cooler, lead to more cinematic encounters, that lead to players knowing and interacting and being a team.
Yeah, I think you're right that I need to experience this before I talk any more about it.
That's fair. I would highly recommend it. I think it's a great time. Another thing I wanted to quickly touch on as a DM, one enormous boon that Team Initiative has is I don't have to remember the order that the 6 goblins go in. I can put them whenever I want, and my god, has that saved so much headache in my encounters. Whenever you're running large groups of things, I can't express enough how valuable it is to intersperse their order. I've had players before, because I screw things up. I've had players before be like, I made my action because I know that orc goes after the cleric, and now they're hitting me. And I go, sorry, I forgot that orc was the one that won on initiative count 12, and the other orc went on initiative count 16. I will have the other orc go first. It is painful. It is miserable. Tracking it is awful. Having team initiative, you expect the DM has the order of the monsters however they like. The monster can form cohesive strategies. The monsters can work as a unit. The gnolls attack and dive on one target. You feel like you can have monsters that have strategic depth and difference to them. A kobold ambush versus an orc ambush can look and feel really different whenever they're working as a unit. That's a really cool feeling. And again, tracking it is way, 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 way. I cannot express just how much better it is.
Well, one thing I think a primary reason I'd say for a lot of people to use team initiative is to cut down on time.
Yep.
And we haven't really talked a lot about that, but yeah,
It
I mean,
sure
I
does
feel
do
like
that.
yes. And that's another reason I'm not as big a fan of it as I could be. As you're talking about the guys on their phones and whatnot, but I don't know. I really enjoy watching a combat unfold, even when it's not my turn. I like to see what's going on. It's entertaining for me.
So
I might be in the minority there.
So I think what is lost in time and team initiative is the fluff. What is lost in team initiative isn't the cinematic nature of the combat, isn't the bird's eye view moment of the action scene taking place. What's lost is you skipped me. What's lost is oh shit, I got 2 of these in the corner I forgot about. What's lost is okay, wait, which of you has the higher dex mod? Okay, you're going first this round. Oh, we forgot your familiar. Okay, sorry, your familiar is going this round. That is what is lost in the timing, and that makes combat feel more fun. It makes you're not only engaging with it more, the combat feels more like the cinematic moment because there's not a lot of the things tearing you out of the fantasy. There's not as many elements to disengage with from the cinematic picture that's being painted. For a person that likes enjoying and watching combats, Bob, I genuinely think you will much prefer watching a team-based initiative than you would be watching a, regular base initiative where there's a bunch of questions and a lot of downtime. And I'm not going to lie to you, there are moments in even team-based initiative where you're going to have a player has to go check their spells, looks through the player's handbook for 2.5 minutes, and everyone rolls their eyes. But at least they can be doing it, and other players can go, while you do that, I'm going to do this. And that is a hugely empowering thing. It makes combats fun. I really think if you don't like Dungeons and Dragons combat and you've felt it's been boring or it's been grindy, it takes too long, if you're at a table that's going, this is taking way too much time, my players don't want to do this anymore, this is the first solution I would look to before making any other changes. Just play team initiative, give it some tries. I really think it radically improves the game. Like, to the degree I wish it was just how it was written base.
All right, well, you know what? I will give that a try.
So I convinced you it's worth at least trying?
Oh, absolutely. I'm an open-minded guy.
Commoners at home, we're probably going to put a clickbait title on this, but there's some nuance. Base initiative isn't the worst thing in the world. I just think that it has problems this solves. So let us know if you prefer which one, why you might not like team initiative, why you really love it, what other initiative systems you use, all that kind of good stuff.
Yeah, let us know down in the comments below. Thank you, Sam, and thank you everyone for joining us. Like, subscribe, and we'll see you next time. Goodbye.